All right, welcome to Crowns and Crows, Crowfall Podcast. Draegan, Doc, and Valor with us tonight. Lakes cannot make it. He'll be back next week, I hope. I, however, will not be here next week. And time for the show, where it's our first 1.1 show. Very, very excited. Let's hit the rundown real quick. We got $6 million figure hit this week, which is very nice for Crowfall. Congratulations to them. Apparently, they allow snakes into the office. So if you're Indiana Jones, do not work for Ace. That's bad. And I'm not too sure who needs a haircut more, myself or Tully. That's what I learned today. So we got plenty of topics to discuss. We got something that we can easily dovetail into our discussion from last week. That goes into the updates that's going to hit from next month about how everything's radically going to shift. We got a comment from Thomas about friendly fire combat, and as he kind of went into that, we could talk about that. We had a combat chat with some kind of updates, kind of figuring out. We had the what was the video called where they were talking about milestone video. Yeah, everybody got to. I thought that was really cool. We can comment on that. And then we got a lot of AMA questions that I want to kind of delve into. That's not even saying how we think of the game. So
which I played right before this.
Finally.
Conveniently.
Excellent.
Excellent. And then I was like, well, I've got to go do a podcast. I came in second, first loser. I'll take that.
There you go. There you go. Excellent. Good for you, my friends. All right, well, I want to kick off the show. You guys might agree with me on this one. I want to talk about the comment from the AMA that Todd had, and then once we get to cover this, we'll go into gameplay. So, oh gosh, now I lost it. Where are we? Here we go. Say my guild is currently on a campaign and it has been for a month. When I am in game, can I teleport back to my EK? Can I go to my friend's EK? Or am I committed to playing in my campaign until the campaign is over in a few months? Todd replies with this, in quotes, an account will be able to subscribe to multiple campaigns at once. I have a larger answer on this one, but it takes a system that we're planning on revealing next month. So I'm afraid that's all I can tell you for now, which is really interesting information. And that does radically change how we view the game. Now, Doc, what's your first reaction to that?
Well, at face value, we knew that accounts might be tied to multiple campaigns, but always with regards to a single character. This, on the other hand, seems to imply that there's something different. That is not enough of an explanation of what's going forward. And I think, honestly, that makes sense because we've had very obvious concerns with the way that guilds were being handled across campaigns in the past. So between guilds and accounts and campaigns, I think the linking there is going to be a little more interesting than we expected, or maybe than they expected.
Well, let's recap real quick because we know. I mean, we were talking about what the big news is going to be in December. They've got this big news announcement. We've been theory crafting about what it could be about. We've speculated on hunger, mobs, some sort of things around the hunger.
Right.
And Todd seems to be alluding to. They're actually going to be trying to tie together the campaign structure a little bit and tie together, campaigns, guilds, and players and how those three interact, which, again, it's a big gaping hole, like Draegan, but it's something that needs to be answered. So when we...
Dude, not even like 5 minutes into the show.
Not even. Yeah. So when I'm thinking about, what is this... what does that little nugget of information mean? I'm seeing, Artcraft taking on how they start marketing their game to the guilds. Because right now, game's cool, but how's the community really going to get involved yet when they don't really even know what's involved?
Well, here's the thing.
You go ahead.
I'm saying, well, here's how I think it mechanically might tie together. Because I'm talking about, you got the lore part of it, and then you got, might be too hardcore. What if playing multiple campaigns with the same character, which is strange altogether, makes your character stronger in different campaigns? So, let's say you can get a buff in campaign A, it makes you stronger in real time in campaign B, which makes it more hardcore because now you have to compete in multiple campaigns at once if you want to be the best of the best.
I hate you, and
There's
I
the
hate this
hardcore
idea.
element. It's a horrible idea. I don't like it
It's
whatsoever.
a terrible idea.
But I'm thinking.
But it's brilliant for getting people to play your game.
That's true.
That's
if
the
you,
hardcore
if you were
part,
like
right?
had to maintain multiple campaigns instead of focusing on one, that would definitely be different than what they were originally thinking.
And here's another way that helps out. Maybe it doesn't help you in real time, but let's say you can go into the dregs, and let's say in order to make yourself care, you can win those rewards. But now you're playing in some of the other campaigns where you can bring shit in, so you want to win the dregs because even though or you're either limited to exporting out what you win, and you can't import anything into the dregs, but you can import something into the outer rings or whatever you want to call it. So it gives the importance for those areas.
Yeah, I know that they don't want to go in any sort of like progression. You don't want to force people to progress from band to band, but they do. They want to make sure people are playing their game, and it's a pretty shallow leveling curve. They want you to be able to get in and compete immediately, but how do they ensure people play a lot? And the doctor, what you said makes sense to me. They simply want to, implement something where, the more you play, the better your characters are, and thus the better you perform.
The one thing that I'm concerned about, and it's related to this, but it's somewhat tangential, is and maybe this will be the answer to that, but I hope that whatever they're doing addresses the question of how guilds really make sense across these campaigns that have such different sort of goals. When the first single multi-guilding arguments came up, I was always confused about the idea of if I'm in the dregs and my guild subs to another guild to sort of help them out in the dregs, but then I'm their enemy on another campaign, or part of the guild is their enemy on another campaign. How is any of that going to work anyways?
Well, here's the thing that you like. You love the neutral parties aspect of everything.
I love neutral parties.
You highlighted their response, which was no new information on our end. But what if now instead of taking from a pool of quote-unquote neutral parties in the campaign that you're in currently, now you have the whole realm of Crowfall in entirety to draw from to bring people into your campaign to help you out. So you have campaign worlds, and now you can if you want to use an EVE analogy, your campaign world is basically like a
certain sector or
a
something.
sector, that's the word I was looking for, a sector in EVE space that you control or whatever, and then that balances back and forth. And then you can kind of create a little cool map of different campaigns worlds going on and what guilds are controlling. And you can nice little
they do want to deal with influence in some manner on campaigns. So, I mean, we're taking these little pieces and we're slowly putting them together.
We could be
now, do
completely
they actually
wrong,
go together?
too.
We don't know. But, but it's good. And it's good for people who are, still getting a little bit more familiar with Crowfall or, they might have missed older news where, Todd, Gordon, Blair, mostly Todd, but he said, it would be awesome to have influence on the maps. We really want to find a way to do that. And, Draegan, that'd be awesome being able to actually spread that across all the different campaigns. But, again, you're going to run up against that. Well, how do you prevent the Zerg? How do you prevent that 3,000-man alliance, or depending on how successful the game is?
I think the game mechanics itself prevent the Zerg. But
it's not just the Zerg. If you can have 100-man guild in every campaign, and every campaign might influence other campaigns, that's going to be tough to compete with.
Well, then you're going to have a meta of running away from the Zerg guild and taking over the other campaigns that they're doing, and kind of run away from there. And it might depend on how many people are in your guild for the winning conditions that the rewards are spread out, or I don't know. They mentioned that they were going to figure out some way to handle smaller guilds.
What traditionally happens when a Zerg arrives, and we're saying Zerg. Simple definition, don't argue with me. Simple definition is just in a massive alliance that is larger than it really needs to be, but is still effectively winning.
Lots of bodies.
Yeah, lots and lots of bodies. What traditionally happens when a Zerg shows up is there is a point in time where a counter Zerg, or we call it alliance because there's going to be the Zerg and then there's going to be the alliance of guys who are trying to stop it.
Right.
And then you end up with those two opposing forces, and you definitely don't want a whole game coming down to that because as soon as one side wins, there goes the other side. Being able to try and come back from that is near impossible when you start getting to these numbers. You deal with morale. Crowfall, I can't imagine them wanting to see that take place across a grand scale.
No, I agree, only because you can look towards ESO or Guild Wars 2 of how people jump from server to server on a weekly basis and found out who was winning, and hopefully that's not how they do it in campaigns, but I can definitely see that happening in some respects, unless they made it more free and put in other countermeasures or something. I'm not too sure how that can handle it. And also, if you can jump campaigns, it might make a campaign that was really hopping on a Friday desolate for like weeks on end. And if you're limited to the campaigns that you can jump into, you might not have access to campaigns that are having fun, and all of a sudden you join a campaign because it was fun, and all of a sudden everybody left. Now you're kind of stuck. So there's a lot of that shit that you have to deal with. But then again, this is a giant what if. That was an idea I threw out there. We don't even know, if that's the case. So it's
I'm going to vote not in favor of that.
Yeah,
just slightly. But it was really interesting.
That's the only thing I can come up with. So let's kind of table that. We could probably bring that up next week because it's a great discussion point. Maybe we find out a little bit more about it as time goes on. But more importantly, everybody's playing the game. Everybody's watching the game. So let's talk. Doc, this is your first time in?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sunday was the first time I got to play.
Pop
Played
that
the
cherry.
Let's
3 hours.
Let's give you the floor and give me your first impressions.
First impressions, it is choppy as shit. It is so difficult to play that it was a massive headache. And yet, I saw a ton of promise. I have never seen a game in 8 months get to where it is. And
how long did you play for?
For the full 3 hours of the Sunday test. And it managed to find a group on the game box, the one that Valor linked. And we're just a random group of people. I don't think anyone knew each other. And we won most of our matches, too. So
the Crowfall Vox, anybody that's interested, links below the stream and on YouTube somewhere.
Yeah,
usually
it's the same game box that we use.
Excuse me. Yeah, so go ahead, I'm sorry.
Ultimately, I thought I was very curious. A lot of the decisions made are very interesting, and especially it's refreshing. I think I had a better experience than a lot of people coming from 1.0 because I think we've all heard a handful of people sort of complain that not a lot was fixed. It wasn't a massive improvement over 1.0, but I'm okay with that. I didn't get to play 1.0, and for me, it was still my first taste of Crowfall, and that was exciting.
All right, so what are your
first taste?
Top 2 things that you like, whether they're just design choices or technical things or glitches, or top 2 things that you liked and disliked, if you got them.
Yeah. Top 2 things that I like. Number 1 is the number of players they're starting off with. Actually, I'd say.
In a match, you mean?
The world feels like a Hunger Games. You feel like there's a big group of people there, which is impressive because most games target really, really small for initial tests. And so that was really cool as this early. Second favorite thing, and I know that me saying this on video recorded is going to get me skewered among certain parts of the community.
Don't do it.
But my favorite thing is the mobs. It's the monsters because
there we go.
Number 1,
podcast
because I called it. I called it like 3 episodes ago. It was me and Valor in a room, and we're like, "Huh, man, I'm thinking that soon they're gonna add AI." And he was like, "I don't know, maybe after 2.0." Nope, called it.
Yes,
but
well, there you go.
No, I think as I've said a few times before, AI is going to be really hard to get right, and I don't want them to be overpowered monster craziness. I don't want it to be a PvE game, and I don't want them to be completely ignored. So getting it in this early shows that they know that it needs to be just perfect for that to even be relevant.
Did you watch the combat chat? Did you get a chance to do that today?
Yeah. I watched both the combat and the milestone stuff.
When they said they're basically NPCs, they want NPCs to present a threat, but not to kick your ass. You know, they want you to be able to mow them down, but not mass hundreds of them and like kind of go through them.
Right.
So I kind of like the direction they're going into with them, and you know, we'll see. I thought beating on them took a little bit too long with 3 of us on it, but again, it's just a start, so I don't really give a shit about numbers at this point.
I would point out that they make an apt comparison to The Walking Dead, and The Walking Dead, by comparison, seems totally different because there's like hundreds of monsters that always outnumber you,
and you can kill them with a single swing.
But
I'm gonna punch you in the head.
Testing,
cool, you're dead.
This early in testing, we already see the frame rate issues and the performance issues. I think I would be willing to bet right now that the reason they are so tough right now is because they eventually want there to be groups of weak monsters, but groups of weak monsters would chug the whole system.
Sure. No, absolutely.
All right. So let's we'll move on. I'll give you an update. I played one round in the test, came in second, but mobs did. Oberon pointed this out as well in chat. Mobs did have their HP reduced, and we were able to kill one of them relatively quickly.
Like I said, I don't really care about numbers because they're going to be tweaking
I mean,
about them
again,
right.
Block whoever's being attacked. Block the attacks coming in. All right. Next topic.
Well, no, I wanted to go back to
Right,
Doc and say two things you didn't like.
My 2 least favorite things. I'll go pretty quickly with this. Number 1, I'm doubling down on what I don't like about the combo system that we talked about before.
I agree.
I'm not a fan of the click a button, click a button, click a button for the combos. I really liked the idea we had originally where maybe if you want a combo, have one ability do something that creates a base state that can trigger another effect on another ability, and now you have a combo. But have all of my abilities just be one thing that I can do, which is really nice. Or like, I don't know, the holding down and charging is kind of neat too. But I'm not a big fan of that stuff, especially
mashing.
Playing the champion a lot. It's like every single ability has 2 parts to it.
Yeah, the first numbers 1, 2, and 3 all have a second stage to them.
Yeah,
and it does get a little bulky.
My other least favorite thing is probably just it was tough with the level of lag and performance to know what was the test and what wasn't. But it's understandable. But that was probably the most.
You can bitch and moan about anything, even if they're going to change it, because that's feedback,
exactly.
and they need that. I mean, like I'm going to agree with you both on 2 dislike points. Combo system, we already talked about that last week, but you finally got the chance to play it, so you got a sense of that. The second one is movement and mouse sensitivity. I just logged on. Apparently, the added mouse sensitivity, but I couldn't figure out how to get out of the settings window. Escape didn't work, and there was no save button.
Yeah, by the way, forgot to tell you that.
Yeah, so whoops. But I hated the movement, and obviously everything's now server side, so everything's going to be a little phantom-like with your control. And this is actually part of an AMA, which is why I'm glad you brought it up, was because they're close to integrating some significant movement, latency adaptation into the test. They'll hopefully happen next week, which kind of conflicts with the information that Thomas gave us in the combat chat, where they said that they might be putting it in closer to the end of 1.1 at the earliest.
Hey, but contradicting themselves to say they're ahead of schedule is always welcome.
I'll take it. Yeah, because it's all the
gotta
game.
Be careful though. There's a number of people who think this game is completely off the rails. Don't be talking about optimistic ahead of schedule type bullshit here.
I don't care about
boy.
fanboys or anti-fanboys. They irritate me. But the thing is, it's hard for me to test. I'll be testing the game after this just to kind of check out some of the things that they're doing. But it's hard for me to test when I can't control my character. I know a lot. I have Overwatch beta to play and everything else, so I got to squeeze all this stuff in. But yeah, the only thing I want to say that I really like, I love how the textures look in this game. They've done a very good job with the art direction, I have to say. I just want to throw that out there. Let's go on, Valor. You got your questions, or 3 questions answered in the AMA. You wanna load us up on that one?
Yeah, sure. You know, I asked. It was one of those little softball questions. Like, here you guys go. See what you can do with it. And what I asked was
hard-hitting journalism at its
yeah,
best.
right. You know, what are 3 key things that you think have led to the downfall of PvP-focused games in the past, and what are you guys doing to design around that? And Todd ended up answering, and surprising. I was a little surprised with his 3 answers, but because mine vary a little bit. But his answers were, a lack of victory condition, and that means there's really no impactful purpose to your PvP. If no one can win, then no one can really lose. And if no one's really losing, are they going to fight as hard as they would if they knew, hey, we're going to lose all this stuff and, all of this time that we've put effort into, and then everyone in the world is going to be able to see that. So that was his first point. He said, hey, a lack of victory condition is a big thing, and we know, Crowfall with the world's ending, and they're going to have winners. That's one of the things that they're going to be designing around. His second point was most games are balanced for PvE and PvP. This is honestly, I would say, one of the greatest problems with any game ever that has ever tried to do PvE and PvP together. And it is just unbelievable how badly they screw this up. And it's because they're trying to balance how 40 people fight against a mob with 800 million HP or whatever World of Warcraft is up to now, and how 5 people fight against 5 people. Yeah. I mean, the Doctor, you've played some of the games, you've dealt with this sort of problem a lot.
Oh yeah, I can think of many. I mean, Destiny runs into this issue all the time. Played WoW back in the day, played Guild Wars 2. They all run into this issue over and over again.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to realize there hasn't been a single MMO in the last decade, let's say, that has been released specifically for PvP. Most of them are FPS and MOBAs that are basically in the PvP space. I mean, you could find a couple here and there, but they're all probably shitty little games that no one really cares about.
Exactly.
So generally you do want to. For most of the games that are released, you do want to balance for PvE because most people are playing it for PvE, so it only makes sense, which is kind of shitty for us when you play games like Arcade, which is actually relatively balanced for the most part for PvP, but it totally falls under Valor's third point that he got from Todd.
Yep. And so, his third response was, he said, connected to 2 above, one of the core tenets of PvE design revolves around item scarcity and collection. So it's, you randomize all of the loot, and the more rare things, they have the smaller percentages, and so they'll play for thousands of hours, and they'll do all this RNG or whatever it is that the crafting system allows, and they're going for that ultra rare, flashy purple, or I don't even know what I don't.
Right, exactly.
Usually it's purple. I don't know how these games have determined purple's more valuable than blue.
Yeah, but everyone knows.
It's the World of Warcraft factor.
Everyone knows.
But now they get into a disagreement on what's the top. I mean, Destiny's got yellow. Guild Wars 2 has red.
Red? Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
see, in WoW, the yellow or the gold is above purple because that's a legendary. Well, that's how they do it in Diablo 3 as well.
Yeah.
But anyway,
yeah. Wait till the first group to be like the sparkling. If the name's animated in any way, you got some good
animated tooltips.
Yeah. So, for them, for games like this, they have to design their whole game around making sure people don't get all of this gear, and so that's what their core design is, and so, Crowfall, to get out of that, play, try and get stuff. Their whole goal is, have decent gear, but don't make it so scarce that people won't PvP for it. You don't want gear to become a hindrance to people going out and fighting, and you don't want it. You don't want people just not playing the game just because, I want to make sure I get this, this and that. And that's what you see is games like Guild Wars 2, there'd be, some of the most populated servers would actually not be all that great at their World v. World because they just happen to be a server not focused on that. And if you, as a company, are building a game and you spend, $10 million building your PvP and you spend $10 million building your PvE, and you only get, 50% engagement on one and 50% engagement on the other. Why didn't you just build 2 fucking games? You know, or build one and, you know, make that one really good. Because, you know, when was the last time you ever saw a great game that, you know, a great, you know, PvE incorporated game and a great PvP incorporated game? I mean, it just doesn't happen because you can't.
Well, the one of the best PvP games I ever played was back in the 90s, and it was a MUD. So that shows my age a little bit. But it was basically 2 different sides, and the PvE world was there for you to grind and pick up loot. And they had rare spawns with rare loot spawns on them, so you go around and get the powerful stuff. But it was a full loot game, and basically what happened in 1.1, HUNGERDOME 1.1, happened all the time in this age-old game. It was you ran around in your gang squads looking for the hotspots where people were grinding out loot drops or experience or whatever, and if they were engaged in a mob, you just swarmed on them and killed them and stole all their shit, which is great because then you got loot because you killed the dudes and potentially the loot that they were going after that was dropping from mobs. So it gave you points of contention. There was no crafting in this game. I mean, it was pretty simple at that point. Yeah. But the best part of the game is even if you were naked and you had no gear or shit gear, there was just like in EVE a command called tackle, which basically ignored almost all of your gear, and you just kind of tussled on the ground, and it was like RNG and stat weight type of stuff. And
I'm pretty sure Pokemon
basically
has
CC.
that ability.
So it was really fun. So you can contribute even if you were naked. So hopefully, it seems Crowfall is kind of going towards that respect. So I would like to see craftable gear. I would also like to see very simple gear drop from mobs, like simple base swords and shields, so you can like either take them apart for materials, or at least get a sword so you can start, you know, doing stuff. So, in any case, the one other AMA question that I found that's worth mentioning before we move on is somebody asked what was after combat, what's their next priority, and Gordon said destruction. Enough said, which is nice. I'm looking forward to that because that's basically the one thing that ties everything together to see how they kind of balance that out in the world because of voxels and stuff.
Yeah,
so
it's going to be really interesting.
So let's talk. I want to talk more about the gameplay that we finally got back into in the last week, because no one wants to hear us ramble about what ifs and all the other stuff. So, what are some of the dynamics that you really liked in the game with the HUNGERDOME? Like Thomas mentioned, people swarming after dudes, killing NPCs, or going into the keep at the beginning was a bad idea, and getting rid of chests, that whole type of thing. Like, what did you like? What did you see? What did you like?
Well, what's funny is in every game that we won, we were the people who spawned closest to the keeps, and we did rush the keep every single time.
Okay.
And those were our easiest matches by far. So, you know, difference in what is expected versus what has happened maybe, or we just got lucky. But having the keep be dangerous was interesting, but it is definitely a manageable risk, and I'm curious if that was intentional.
Did anybody contest you inside the keep?
Usually, one team we experience seems to spawn so much closer to the keep than the other teams that you don't get contested. Like, by the time they're getting in there, you're already up top looting the chests.
Right.
And they're going to have to run through the same set of monsters that we had one Legionnaire who was running around aggroing the things out of the way while we ran in, grabbed all the gear, and then we regrouped, distributed the gear, and that worked out really, really well.
It's a good strat. That's the new meta.
That's the new meta right there.
It was totally useless if we spawned, far away. There was one game we spawned, and the hunger started creeping on us like moments after the timer started, and we're like, "Oh shit!"
Well, that's great. I mean, there's a little bit of randomness. The hunger starts at faster or slower.
Yeah,
I like that.
Well, and so I mean, this is a point that actually got brought up, among the testers, which the doctor, you're new to the group. It's okay. Back during HUNGERDOME 1.0, exactly the groups who spawn closest to the gate. Yeah, definitely rush the door. Get into that keep, grab those 8 or 9. Was it
6?
6? No, because there's there, and at least in the other one, there was a chest over to the right. There were 2 chests up on the top, and then there's another one somewhere over on the left.
Got the one in the top. The one's in the top.
Again, they're not there anymore. All right, I know it's a little bit past you, but that's one thing that I thought was also really interesting. Is I played the first test that came available, and then I just played 1 round. And this round, I was on a team with 1 guy I knew, he's pretty good, and then 2 just completely pugs. And they weren't in game box, couldn't coordinate with them at all. Everyone died in 1 engagement because, bad juju. And I ended up having to actually dodge all of these mobs. And funny enough, at the very end, it comes down to me and 1 other knight, and I'm getting attacked by 2 mobs, and he's not. And, it adds a different layer to it.
Yeah.
Now you have to make sure you're not in the aggro range because they can turn a fight. And it forces, hey, pay attention. You don't have to just worry about players now. You have to worry about all of these other little obstacles and the players.
You have to mind your environment.
Yeah,
Christian
exactly.
Bale in Batman Begins style.
You Christian Bale, or we could even go with Star Wars. Don't fight in lava.
There you go.
Just saying.
Just
Shit happens.
Shit happens.
Valor, you said you wanted
yeah.
to... Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, no, I was just gonna say that I think it is interesting though that I saw a number of teams do different things to win or lose. There were many times where we had that there was 1 or 2 times where we had that inner area, and then we saw everyone pouring in from the outside and felt completely trapped. And there were totally times when we were the furthest team away and we still managed to sort of inch our way in while everyone else charged to the center and killed each other off before we even had to deal with them. So I'm really impressed that the game doesn't seem like it's so wildly swingy that a team gets ridiculously ahead by the same strategy every time. So that's also really good.
Yeah. Well, and they, because of how they've diversified all the loot, we see the teams that they'll go around the outside edges, and then there are teams in the middle, and everyone fights, and there's just a million different ways to go about it. So yeah, I agree. The diversity of how you get to those last fights is pretty key. Unless you're like me, at which point I'm 1 guy going up against teams of like 3 and 4, and I'm just like dodging, kiting them into each other. But yeah, Draegan, were you about to unleash me on the AMA?
Yeah, you said at some points I forgot to bring up that you wanted to talk about.
No. I just wanted to do a quick recap on the AMA. I got through a portion of it, not all of it, but there are some interesting pieces that for all the lazy people who don't want to read the AMA,
You're not going to go through all the...
No.
Okay.
I picked out a couple key ones.
Sure, go ahead.
Somebody asked, can you paint your gear? Artcraft's going to be putting in a palette shift. Palette shifting is already working. It's just not a priority right now in the test. So we will be able to change a lot of different colors and stuff. We'll see how that goes. Let me kill these as I read them. That way I'm not accidentally doing the same thing.
You were not prepared.
Yeah. They asked. Someone asked, "Is network issues? Are they where you expected them to be?" And Gordon actually responded, said, "Yeah, everything's actually about where they expect it." And then, as you talked about earlier, Draegan, they're going to be moving to a client-side controller with some adaptation, so that you can actually predict. Your computer will predict where your enemies are going to be based off of what's going on the server.
And that's basically standard for a lot of online games. A lot of people have that. Yeah. And the one thing you might want to mention that in the I forget if it was the combat chat or the milestone video. They were talking about how the engineers finished up a lot of the preliminary stuff, and then it moves on to the coding, and it moves on to the animations and stuff like that. So obviously it's a team effort for everything. So yeah, things are progressing. So hopefully by 2.0 we should see a lot of really cool refinements.
Yeah. Somebody asked about the points of interest. They said, "Hey, are these things going to be captured on a daily basis? Weekly? How fast are they going to be turning over?" Todd responded. He said, "Yeah, POIs are going to be something that are constantly in flux, and it's not just who owns them. It's when you actually extract whatever resources from those points of interest, you then have to transport it. So we know and understand all of that, but what I thought was interesting was, these are going to be constantly changing hands. And when you have that, that means it's not like somebody just, they take it, they build up, a wall around it, and then it's theirs until somebody sieges it effectively.
Right.
It's whoever's there is going to get the resources, and it doesn't tell me that there's going to be any sort of, necessary timer. It's not going to be like, every 30 minutes it spawns resources.
Well, they did mention that it was something that he talked about, how there might be some server-wide announcement or some UI flag that shows when resources spawn or something like that, for at least in some situations. I could have sworn I heard or read somewhere that they were going to thinking about doing that.
Yeah, that'd be a great question for Blixdev.
I probably haven't even thought about it yet.
No, it's just one of those things. He's in chat, or he's in. You
don't know if he's in chat. He might be popping from stream to stream to stream tonight.
He watches all the different streams, or tries to
watch a
lot of the streams.
My final game of the Sunday stream and testing, he told me, he cheered me on as I won.
Nice.
It's spin to win.
He just yelled at me the whole time. He just you're moving wrong. Press that button.
He started off being like, Doc, the Confessor's cone of fire doesn't shoot that far. And I was like, yeah, I noticed there weren't numbers popping up, and I wasn't really winning, so thanks.
Makes sense.
Doc,
are you done?
Almost. You're getting really
How many
close.
more?
Two.
Two more. Okay.
This one particularly is a lot to read, but it's not much. Somebody was asking about, this ties into a little bit on crafting, actually, which I know everyone's super excited about. Somebody said, hey, can someone progress their Eternal Kingdom without ever leaving it or entering campaigns? And again, we're probably going to get to this in December, answer. Crafting allows for variable regions, and that means you can craft plate helmet recipe and then decide at the time that you make it which materials you want to use. So you could use iron to make like a plate helm, and that'll have different attributes if you use steel as opposed to copper or gold. So what you do with your equipment and the different ingredients that you use will change its attributes, and in doing that, those ingredients only available in these particular campaigns you're going to have to go out and get. Now, I don't know how they're going to necessarily handle scarcity, since how we talked about that earlier.
Or you could just buy them with your
you could
coins.
just buy them, but then you have to have gold, which has to come from somewhere, which
sell
usually
your
comes from selling stuff.
Right.
But you can sell VIP. Mm-hmm. Anyway, we won't get into that.
And it's tough to, can one person maintain their EK? Well, that's sort of a misleading question, because one person's probably going to have a guild. Mm-hmm. And so, there may be players who can never touch the campaigns, but they're going to be tied to somebody who's either giving them stuff to sell or somebody who they're making business with. Somehow, it all comes back to the campaigns.
The answer to this person's question, which I didn't even get their name, the answer to this person's question is yes. You can administrate
but we knew this
an
already,
EK
right?
without ever going into a campaign. However, it will take a lot of work because you have to then administrate every aspect of getting what you need to build and operate your EK. Last one real quick. How did you make an MMO in the current gaming, and how do you make an MMO in the current gaming environment for people who could never get into MMOs? I like this question because of Gordon's response.
It's like we don't care about those people.
We're mostly not. We're not making an MMO for people who've never played MMOs. We're making an MMO for people who've played MMOs but are not getting from them what they want. So, folks, this isn't necessarily going to be the game that you finally get your girlfriend or wife to get into MMO gaming with you, or your husband, or whoever. This is just going to be a fun, PvP-centric MMO.
It's just for you.
Last actual question is, have you ever considered making a science-based, 100% Draegan MMO? I think this could be a big hit. And Todd actually said, I can honestly say I have never considered that. that concludes our AMA segment
I'd
of Crowns
really
and
like
Crows.
to jump very quickly back to the second to last
Yeah,
question.
go for it.
Because I think the question assumes already a misunderstanding that MMO is one category that really fits well, for everything. It's MMOs has brought up a category as like adventure game, and while Metal Gear Solid could be an adventure game, and Tomb Raider could be an adventure game, and God of War can be an adventure game, and they're all totally different and completely different. People might play them. So to say like, is this going to be an MMO for people who haven't played MMOs? Well, I don't know. It depends on what you have played, really, because it's so very different from so many of these things. To base it on whether you've played something just based on the number of players who play it is really missing a point.
I mean, like we're getting to the end of the era when you say MMO and people automatically think EQ or WoW or any of the other associated clones.
That's true.
Now it's like MMO is basically an online game where you have a dude and you can put stuff on it and do things.
Which
is good.
That's where I call it now really random sort of Nostradamus-y thing, but I think MMO as a whole, as like a name, is just going to die off sooner or later, because I don't think a game can really be measured by the size of its player base.
Yeah.
Because,
we've argued. I mean, we could go over this again, but we've argued a lot that the current definition of genres does not really apply to a lot of the games in development right now. MMO, multiplayer.
People don't really put the massive anymore in the massive multiplayer online game.
Yeah.
And massive means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. But let's move on, because I hate going over semantical. That's not even a word.
Which we do
arguments.
constantly.
Yes.
Throughout
That's
the
my
entire
favorite.
day. That's all the doctor and I do, and Draegan just sits there shaking his head.
Waste your time.
basically.
Let's talk about Friendly Fire, because both of you guys linked this in the pre-show section of Slack. It was basically the only dev post of the last week about the game itself, other than technical issues or bugs or something like that, which I thought was interesting.
Or what, or is it Pacific time, Central time, or Eastern time?
Exactly. So,
Because Mountain time.
do one of you guys want to pop this up, or you want me to just roll into it?
For me, roll into it, and then we'll attack it with vengeance.
Okay, so basically somebody asked about, yo dudes, like Friendly Fire, like where it's at. It would suck with this how this game is right now. What do? So basically Thomas came on and said, and I'll just read it really quick. To be honest, we aren't ready for super finesse play in combat. Yes, we have rough outlines and technical gameplay that comes with animation locks, slower movement speeds, and combos, which is great. I already see people doing some stuff and tells whatever. Crowfall is a technology stack is still young. So basically, there's a lot of other stuff here. Basically, they're not ready to implement it yet because they're nowhere near ready to have that issue. And some people are saying, why don't you have it now instead of get it out there in the early parts? But it's very hard to test a lot of the movements and all the other stuff without having to worry about Friendly Fire right now.
Yeah.
Especially since it's hard to control your character, let alone control your character around your other people.
Let's break this down. Let's
ahead.
have a bit of a debate about it, because I can definitely, I'm in agreement with Thomas. Yes, it's probably not the best idea yet, but I want to argue for Friendly Fire, and we'll just see how this goes, because
Okay.
Good.
there's some good information out there, and I think it's being able to flesh this out might help us find resolution.
Do we need resolution?
Everyone needs resolution.
This is one of the most
All right, well, what's your
topics on the forums right now.
Yeah, I mean,
so what's your argument then, Valor? Start us off.
Foundation of the argument is that, and from conversations with Thomas himself, the more you build the game, the harder it is to go through and change anything, because you've already built everything around it. So when people say, "Hey, Friendly Fire, this is something Artcraft said is definitely going to be in the game," they're going to make it work as best they can, and while it won't be in every campaign, it is a big attracting element for a lot of the people interested in Crowfall. And so taking all of that, we're looking at, Crowfall HUNGERDOME 1.1, and we say, well, we've got combat, we've got people fighting people, we have some, basic teams. Why don't we have friendly fire? If you're designing skills already that you're going to use across all of your different archetypes in a variety of ways, wouldn't you want them already tweaked for friendly fire? I mean...
Here's my response. You ready?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the purpose of this test? The purpose of this test is to basically get people playing the game for publicity, but also to give them data on how things are going, right? So it's basically, you're taking in data, you're figuring things out. So if you put friendly fire in now, when it's very difficult to control your character, a lot of the animations aren't in properly, a lot of the art effects are not in properly, where it's very difficult to gauge the timing, it's very difficult to aim properly, it's very difficult to see exactly how far something goes. You throw that in there, people are going to be saying, I'm just killing my teammates, it's not fun, and people are not going to be testing the game. And basically there's going to be only a few of the hardcore people running around, and they're not going to have enough people to spawn multiple games going on for people to have fun and play it.
But this is an alpha test. I mean,
Sure.
We're here to test the game. We're not here to necessarily enjoy it or play it. We're here to give Artcraft information for how to make the game better for future iterations. And so, if we have, I linked this to you guys so you could see what I was going to talk about. There is a fantastic post that I thought was pertinent to this conversation and not just people crying, where a player says, hey, you've got a melee character and he swings his axe in this giant, arcing sweep.
It's a huge area.
And he hits everyone in front of him. That is not really a great design for a skill in a highly technical, friendly fire game, an environment. Because now you can't swing without hitting hitting your friends.
Stop right there, because what did they say in the combat chat? They said that they're going to design the knight, and then all the way up to the last champion, and every time they design a new champion or get it out there, they go back to the original one and touch it up. It's an iterative process. This is how development of anything works. You start with the basics, and then you build upon that. The fact that they have the knights with these wide attacks or whatever, it's because that's how wide the arc they made one day when they were designing it. You can easily tweak the size of these arcs, and you don't want to get, when you're still developing the net code, the skeleton of all the systems, the client, the server, how people move in an environment, and all the little different pieces that go into making the game, how wide the cone is and tweaking that is something you do not want to tackle at this point, because that is so far down the line as far as a detail that's what you can't do at month number 8. That's why they don't really care about the numbers of damages or all the others. That's why they're not tweaking a lot of these things right now, because there's a lot of infrastructure that they have to build and perfect. Just like anything else, if you're building a car, you don't go and just assemble the engine and put it all together and put it in a chassis and do it else and then turn the key and it's like, oh, it doesn't work. Well, no, you test the frame for any structural flaws. You put the pieces together in the engine, you make sure that the ignition fires, and you slowly test each piece as you put them together. And something like friendly fire, which doesn't happen very often in a lot of these games, that's something you want to kind of put in at specific points when you have a controlled environment that's ready for it. Because right now they do not have a controlled environment to test friendly fire. And that's my long-winded answer to you.
So I have absolutely no idea how cars work, but I'm going to take that analogy and run with it. Because I think friendly fire to Crowfall is sort of like, it's sort of like a dangerous component of the engine that when not installed properly could actually hurt everyone, but is also so deep in the engine that it does need to be in there long before the car is done.
I'm going to help you out here, even though we're on opposite sides. All right, it's like a manual transmission, and not having friendly fire enabled is like an automatic transmission. All right, continue.
Well, I mean, like people. I mean, right now. Oh, I'm sorry. You had more stuff.
No, that's
My
fine.
bad.
I think I'm right in the middle, and I say that what does I feel like I feel both extremes of this argument. I don't feel like I'm in the middle. I feel like I'm torn on both sides because on one hand, as a developer, as someone who has made engines and games before, I played for only 3 hours, and my first thought was, wow, friendly fire would make this unplayable. I think there's no argument there. The people who think that that's not the case are insane. I mean, the entire game mode ends with everyone standing on a tiny little fountain, half of whom have giant circular AoEs. So what this means is that the last minute and a half of every single HUNGERDOME would just be people dying and nobody knowing why.
Sure.
So that alone would make it not work. But it does scare me that there's not enough sort of confirmation, and scare is a strong word, but confirmation from Ace that friendly fire is and needs to be a serious core component of the game.
Well, see, here's
I do agree
everybody's problem.
that it is so important that it needs to be done soon, and it needs to be expressed to be in all of the game. It can't just be the dregs thing and everything else is rainbows and butterflies. Friendly fire is going to be integral to the balance. It either needs to be there or it needs to not be there.
Here, this is the
Wait,
major problem.
whoa.
Hold on a second.
Start that sentence and then end it about half a second before you did.
I know.
It needs to just be there.
Here's the
but
problem.
anyway.
Here's the problem, and everybody's doing with this argument. It happens all the time on the internet. It's either you're either black or you're white. You're either at 1 or you're at 10.
Whoa.
There's all that stuff in the middle. Like we're all sitting here on a podcast, like saying, "Oh, development of a game is easy. There's only a couple different points." But as you can see in these milestone things, like the shit's complicated. Like, did you see the AI brain shit that he was doing? Like, Valor couldn't figure that out. So, I mean, like, what the fuck? So, you have to, I mean, like, maybe you don't put it in HUNGERDOME 1.1. Maybe you put it in HUNGERDOME 3.0. And then once all the network code and everything else and the characters can control, that's when you start sticking that shit in. I'm definitely not advocating to stick it in, like, when all the archetypes are made and it's, September of 2016 sometime. Oh, now we're going to throw it in there. Yes, it has to go in at a base point, but I don't think we're there yet.
I agree, and I do agree with that. I think that I would hate to see it thrown in before the game mode and the core architecture is ready for it.
Yes.
The last thing I want is to kill all my allies because I lagged and couldn't tell which ability I was picking, or they ran in front of me before I realized, that I needed to stop a combo.
Well,
and the last thing I want is to have friendly fire enabled on a game mode that literally has a stand on a 1 meter by 1 meter circle at the end.
Right.
We brought up the melee swing and the arc and all of that, but here's where, and I think this is a legitimate concern that where this friendly fire could actually have some significant impact on things is, currently we'll say the fireballs, they're 1 foot big and they can travel 30 feet. And, because it's so hard to hit anything right now, they make them, 3 feet big and they can travel 60 feet just so that it's easy, so that you can actually hit stuff and they can see what's working and what's not. And as everything kind of continues before they implement friendly fire, they're going to adjust the size and the distance, the speed, all of these things, and they're going to adjust that for playability and to make it work.
Yeah.
And then they implement friendly fire, and they start over.
Well, that's
So-
that's how you design a game. What happened? What did they
That's
say in the
not
combat
even-
chat when they said they turn on the stats?
Well,
You gotta
it's-
go line tweak everything, but that's how you do it.
That is not even just how you design a game. That is an integral understanding of programming that I do think is important. Is you have to know that every time you program, you're wasting some of your time, no
Exactly.
matter what you do.
Yeah,
that is
that's
important
true.
to remember. Is that you never ever get it right on the first time, and always you take a few steps in a wrong direction that have to be undone. I think that it's scary because there is no easy answer about what is the perfect time to start doing it. That's where I think my stance.
I
where
have a
say
great
that
answer.
My stance in this sort of debate is I don't care too much about when they put it in because I trust that they'll know when the game's functional enough for it. But I would love them to finally acknowledge whether or not it's going to be a part of the whole game or whether it's just like sort of an aspect
They've already
of the
said that,
dregs.
though. They said that there's going to be... I think the last answer we got from them, and I think it still holds, is they want it to be in the game completely. And they don't know how the server is going to maintain that until they get some internal testing done. They suspect that there's going to be some of the harder core whatever campaigns are going to have it, and there's going to be some campaigns without it. They've already said that, and there's nothing stopping.
Yeah, I know, and that's but that's what my point is. I don't think. I mean, we talked about how do you balance a PvE game and a PvP game. I would argue it's just as hard to balance a friendly fire game and a non-friendly fire game, and so that's the thing that I'm worried about is if they do try and make it so that there's campaigns with it and campaigns without. I mean, play any Battlefield game that had friendly fire enabled at one point and see how much worse the game was with it turned off because you just had grenades and bombs and shit everywhere.
But that you're playing against the campaigns without it on are basically going to be like the newbie casual type of things, and no one's really going to care if it's a shitty experience because you have the option of going somewhere where it's turned on. So go there.
That's fair.
Well, I'd like to wrap it up with, one, they have not brought in just a group of people who they know are going to just test the game and they don't mind dealing with, this a buggy system and friendly. If they just had a group of people who they just wanted to test the game and they understand all the different complexities that go into that, they would not mind as much a friendly fire enabled. It would be pretty crappy. In its current rendition. So they wouldn't mind that. But because they've gone through this, kind of early access approach with their Kickstarter, they have to take into consideration that they've paid to test, but they've paid to play test. And so they want to try and keep it in that fun level because, you look at what happened with H1Z1. We bring this up every time. And, people rioted after they played that game, the first week. So, with that being said, I say when they open this game up to the full, a world map, and they get away from the HUNGERDOME, I think that's when they can start implementing friendly fire because now you have space, you have that ability to really work on what's going on, and I just hope that we can start seeing some like 24/7 servers.
But here's
somebody asked that actually in the AMA, and they said that's probably not happening until beta. So,
well, I mean, the main point also that Thomas brought up
that's
is
not what happened until beta.
well, here's the thing. And this is the last point I'll bring up, and Thomas brought this up. They're a game that's completely driven, or not completely driven, but mostly driven from Kickstarter and crowdfunding at this point. They're completely open with their development, from alpha to everything's open. No NDA. You're seeing the shitty play and the good play. If you can't implement friendly fire perfectly right now, you do not want the game being streamed all over the place with people just running around killing everybody and completely unfun. Then no one's going to be interested about it. Like right now, there's pretty positive feedback on the game from streams or whatever. Hey, this game's cool. It's it's only 8 months old, and look at this. If they had friendly fire on it, it'll be like it look like a mess at this point, and no one's going to be interested in it. So that's my final point on that.
Well,
people panic too much. Relax.
Todd did answer very generically a question about friendly fire. He said, it's a valid concern. AOEs, it's something they're committed to experimenting with. So. And they've said this. All the skills in the game right now, they're just in there so they can test them out to be able to, retool them and put them on a different archetype if need be, and retool them for the current archetypes. So what it is what it is, guys. For the folks who are all up in arms about it, which is really not that many, just be patient.
Stop.
It's coming out. It's coming out.
Go play another game. Relax.
Yeah. Exactly. I'm playing Paladins whenever I can't play Crowfall, and it's fun. And I don't have to worry about any of this stuff.
I played a bunch of...
Checking out Squad. Have you guys heard of Squad?
Are we really?
Kickstarter game from the developers of Battlefield Project Reality mod.
I didn't.
Highly recommend checking out
We
both
pimping
of those.
out other shit right now.
Slingshot the
Yeah.
doctor right into a different
Let's
direction.
go to the after show with some of this stuff.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for watching. It was we're just about an hour in there in about 10 seconds. So again, thanks for watching every Tuesday night, 8:30 Eastern. Doc and Valor here with us tonight. I will not be here next week, so look for Valor and the Doc and perhaps Lake coming at you.
I might not be all the way with it either. I've got a surgery on Monday, so
It's okay. I'll just talk
see.
the whole time.
I'm gonna have
Boom.
fun,
Listen to me talk.
but we'll see if I make any sense.
So, again, we'll see you next week. Do all the likes and the follows and the social medias. Keep an eye on Valor on Twitter, as he'll update you on the scenario as time goes on. And I will attempt to see if my Internet the Holiday Inn next week is any good, but I doubt it. So,
Yeah.
anyway, have a good night, guys.
Take
See
care.
you later.